Hello, dear Tony. Thank you for taking the time to interview the Foundation to Battle Injustice. Please tell our viewers and readers about yourself and your blog on the internet.
Yes, hello, thank you for the invitation. My name is Tony Bosnakúdη. I'm the press and communications officer for the ΑΚΚΕΛ political party in Greece. It is not the same with the ΑΚΚΕΛ party in Cyprus, we just sound the same. We have double K. ΑΚΚΕΛ is the agriculture and livestock party of Greece. It's a full-fledged party like all the others, but it started with the aim of creating the conditions in order to achieve the sustainability of the agricultural sector of the economy in order to create the basis for sustainability in the food industry. Because we believe that since 2015, 14, that it started that you cannot do anything if you cannot sustain your people. We had this blog, ΑΚΚΕΛ Party, blogspot.com, in order to disseminate our policies and also press releases, announcements, articles about everyday developments in the society, both in Greece, in the European Union and abroad. And this was partly because we may have time later to speak, because we faced a blockade, as many people have done in recent years from the major companies in Facebook, Google and other large companies, because we are considered to be an anti-regime party. We are not supporting globalism, we are supporting the nation states and the national societies. And this is not seen very positively by the oligarchic governing regime, which currently has the upper hand in global politics. For that.
Most of the publications on your website are devoted to politics. You expose the corruption of European politicians and point out numerous crimes committed at all levels of the government. What changes do you think need to be made in the political life of Europe and Greece in particular?
Well, the most fundamental one is to restore democracy and the functions of democracy. Now, it may sound strange to somebody, because we like to say that we have democratic society, democratic governance. Well, we don't have. We don't have in Greece. Greece is an occupied country, as we were in the 1940s. From the Nazi forces, the Nazi regime. Today is a multi-occupation from various interests, and the same is for the European Union. Now, in the European Union, they politely call it as a democratic deficit. It's not a democratic deficit, it's democratic non-existence, because with various ways that we can have a special meeting for that and discuss about that. It takes a lot of time to speak about it. The democratic functioning in the European Union and in Greece especially, it's much worse in Greece. It has just vanished currently, and you can see it very openly today in the international press, especially about the journalism is related, because I am a journalist. I'm a member in a press union, the SPID union in Greece, and I know firsthand what is happening in the press field. So the first thing to do is to restore democracy. We now have a multi-oligarchic system in the best case. There are a number of interest groups and pressure groups, or even organized crime groups, who have control of politics and the society. And we do not have the representative democracy that we like to think that we have. So the first thing that you said, the changes, is to restore democracy, especially through education to the people, telling them what happened and what should be happening in order to rectify this, to correct this. And another one I can speak about Greece is to restore the integrity of the voting system. We saw the problems they had in the United States in the recent elections, but we have these problems for many years, and we especially because the votes are calculated, processed, and published through a private company, Singular Logic, which is not practically controlled by the people. It is supposed to be controlled by the Ministry of the Interior, but nobody believes that. So the other major important thing that should be done is to restore the accuracy and the reliability of voting systems, so that whatever the people vote is what the result will be like. And some people said in the past, I think some in Russia said that, or in the Soviet Union, that it does not matter what people vote, but what matters is who counts the votes for that. And the Americans had this recently, they had the experience, but usually the Americans were doing this stuff to us, so it was strange to see that happening in their own country as well. So
a significant part of your publication also talks about the influence of the United States on the foreign policy of other countries. In your opinion, why have Americans continued to meddle in other countries' affairs for several decades?
Well, the most fundamental reason for that is that the Americans, the United States, changed radically and very badly, and the Americans know that, after the Second World War. And they were contaminated by Nazism. You may find it, some people may find it strange, but it is widely known in the United States, at least in the administrative field, that after the Second World War, there was an influx of Nazi war criminals and Nazi collaborators inside the structure of the government structure of the United States. And in fact, there is even a declassified CIA report from the history department of the CIA. It is 654 pages. I read it, I go through this twice. It actually tells many cases where the Americans adopted war criminals from the Nazis, and they incorporated them inside the government or intelligence structures of the United States. And after a few decades, it's around the time with the unification of Germany was happening, there was this report in which one of the bibliographical references it has was in previous books by Americans, which said that all the reactionary and problematic attitudes and characteristics of the United States in the international community, as the people see it abroad, was because of this contamination of the Nazi elements which penetrated the American society. So, in one sense, the Americans, the United States, actually franchised Nazism in the American way. They Americanized Nazism in a way that the Americans themselves know that, and many people who were supporting Donald Trump and fighting against the regime in the United States were having that in mind. Not all of them, but a significant part of it was because of that. So, in a sense, the Americans are working now, knowing that they have been promoting and continuing what the German Nazis stopped through the say the franchising of Nazism that they have done in the United States. It's a huge issue. I mean, you can see 654 pages. It was just the CIA report about what happened in the United States. If you see what happened in Europe and in the other places, is that the same things happened in many other countries, in Greece especially, and they are now using the networks of collaborators and war criminals who were not prosecuted in order to establish their base in each country. At least in Greece, this is the case, very much.
Freedom of speech in the West has not been going through the best of times in the last few years. Information objectionable to the political leadership is almost immediately removed from the network. Major American social networks delete accounts whose agenda differs from the Washington's. Tell us, how do you think freedom of speech has changed in the West in recent years?
Now, from my experience in the media, in press, a number or a significant part of the responsibility lies in the journalists themselves, because they allowed journalism to be changed, altered, you can name it whatever you want, into a corporate structure, corporate journalism or media, which does not control the government or the other authorities as they should have done. A big share in this responsibility is what we call here as the lifestyle, a kind promoted a way how to walk, how to live, how to speak, how to communicate with other people, how to socialize with other people, which was not a natural way that we have been doing that in previous decades. But the main part, the main, let's say, basis of this lifestyle and the corruption and the alterations of journalism is corruption. Corruption took many shapes, and part of this was created on the basis of what I called the Nazi collaborators and the revival of Nazism. This is a very essential issue to work, because if you do not understand or accept that the revival of Nazism in many countries in the West is responsible for the corruption created, and the corruption creates a lot of other unwanted situations. We don't have the time to speak right now. It will not be understood. And but another issue that contributed to this to the current situation is what we have seen in Greece as the Greek experiment. It may not be very well known to you, but what happened in Greece and in some other European countries in the previous decade, about 12 years ago, I guess approximately 12 years ago, with the memoranda and all this kind of stuff against the Greek society, the Greek economy, actually created a database, you can call it a social database, of how you can jail or imprison a society in a small scale in Greece in the beginning, and then it was spread up and created all over the world, especially with the policies and the campaigns against Russia because of the Crimea issue, and currently because of the policies in the fight against COVID. But it's a combination of issues from that. But I will insist on that the main issue that was very essential, and it could not, if it was not existing, this situation could not be created, is the cooperation of many journalists, and especially boards of directors in press unions, which allowed that to happen by switching roles for the journalism in a sense that violated completely press ethics. We would publish in a few days a complete breakdown of what happened, all the violations of Greek law, ethics law, and the International Federation of Journalists, and in the issues around COVID and around political pluralism. And the fact that this was combined with the corruption created by the remaining of the Nazi regime, whatever survived and grew up in the previous decades, is the answer to what you told me. Well, I can say a lot of things, but we don't have the time for that right now.
Have you encountered artificial restrictions on freedom of speech? Have you received threats because of the materials that are published on your website?
Yes, we have all, especially the president of ΑΚΚΕΛ, Mr. Evangelos Tsiobanides, is a constant victim of the policy of the companies in the social networks, Facebook, Google, YouTube, all of them. And because they were completely arbitrarily deciding probably they are deciding almost every week or every month that some of the publications we do are annoying some people, and they reduce the readership and the range of the people that can see them. They also block the way they are disseminated, and in some cases, when we had our mailing lists, they were sending many of our mail in the spam box. People were not receiving them, and I personally made almost 1,000 phone calls. I can tell you, many hundreds of phone calls to media and other in blogs or websites, whatever, in order to secure that they will be looking at our press releases, announcements, and this kind of publications, in order to achieve at least some elementary plurality in the system. The other things that we have, and perhaps this is the worst of all, is the so-called fact-checking, the fact-checkers. Unfortunately, there are journalists working as fact-checkers, and I personally are outraged with this, because fact-checking is, I could say, the destruction of journalism. You cannot be a fact-checker and be a journalist as well, because as we see, the checking if something is accurate is part of the journalistic body of research. So this must be done only by journalists. You cannot have independent, you cannot outsource the accuracy of the fact-checking, of the accuracy of the existence of the information. Let me tell it a little descriptively. When you take fact-checking out of the function of the body of journalism and the body of journalistic research, it is as if you take the liver or the kidneys outside of the body. You have somebody walking with a suitcase, having the kidneys or your liver, and controlling them and telling you this is the proper way to go. You want to go to another way, says no, I keep your kidney. You go to this way. No, you're not going. This is what happens. I mean, you cannot have separate function of fact-checking. This is outrageous. I mean, the people who work in fact-checking should be completely banned for doing any journalistic work for life. And we have even press unions here in Greece, the POSI, the Federation, or the largest press union, are completely condemning these practices, but just in words, we don't see any action in practice to happen to these things. So we are, another thing about the threats, we have received a lot of out-of-court complaints from government officials because we made revelations who are accurate about them and their policies. So they criminalize the political let's say the political check on their policies. And the other thing that we have done is we have also been a victim of phone monitoring. Our president has made 13 months ago to the special committee which guarantees the secrecy of communications about potential monitoring of his phone calls, and for 13 days we do not have an answer for that. So it's
the case that brought us together, Julian Assange, one of the most famous unspoken symbols of freedom of speech. He has been a victim of state repression for several years. How would you comment on the recent decision of the British government to extradite a journalist to the United States?
Well, this, I can tell you something important for us is in the last developments. The court verdict is actually a political decision. I mean, nobody believes that it is the British justice which determines what will happen with Julian Assange. It's politics, the politics of the United States, and some in the British government, which who want to extradite him and use him as a source, as an example that if you are going against us, you will go to jail. But one of the things that we have done, the ΑΚΚΕΛ party, for Julian Assange is that we examined all the revelations he did in WikiLeaks. And many of them are extremely useful for Greece, and especially all the package, you can say, of the revelations are in line with the ideals and the principles of Hellenism. And we started a procedure, and we informed about the skeleton of this offer to the Minister of the Interior, Mr. Voridis, about giving Julian Assange honorary citizenship. And of course, it is not easy, especially in the with the pressures from the Americans. But what happened now, and I think the people in Russia should know that, is that we have seen after the visit of our president in St. Petersburg in May, when he attended the celebrations for the victory against Nazism, we have seen that we have a lot of joint ideas with others, and probably you know that there can be now an exchange of Julian with British and perhaps American citizens captured by Russian forces in Ukraine, in order to make the exchange, and the British could go back to Britain, and Julian Assange could be sent to Greece in order to participate personally in this procedure of honorary citizenship. And in fact, I know that there is many letters were sent to British members of parliament about that, and we expect to see some taking position, either the British government or even the Russian government for that, because it is worth noting that some of the problems like the Julian Assange that need to be solved, we see it as Alexander the Great saw the Gordian knot. This was a knot that could not be solved by anyone, so he did not solve it, he said cut it. So this must be a knife, as we say. It could be a sort of knife in order to cut this problem about the captivity of Julian Assange and giving some solutions that could not be given by politicians.